بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد, we are in the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ, and the title is وَضْعُ الْيُمْنَ عَلَى الْيُسْرَى وَالْأَمْرُ بِهِ, putting the right on the left and the command to do so. And we spoke about already at the beginning of the prayer, we spoke about the takbir, and just to emphasize that we have mentioned last time, if we haven't, and we'll let me mention at the moment, I just asked my brother, and he said to me, we have mentioned it, that is, we said that the Imam is to make sure that the takbir is audible to the people, and if it's not audible, then there will be a person to convey the takbir to the people. We mentioned that, yes? Alhamdulillah, right, okay. I add to that as well, if the person who is making the tabligh is preceding the Imam, as some of the cases, it happens, and this person who is doing it, he's jeopardizing his prayer. He's actually, as Imam Ahmad, he said, his prayer will be invalid. And if he's doing and if he is doing like we see in some of the Masjid, they are not having tranquility in their prayer. Basically, all you bothered about just putting their voice behind the Imam, and again, that would jeopardize their prayer with the consensus of all scholars, because tranquility is a pillar in the prayer. So let's go ahead and talk about putting the right on the left and the command to do it.
To place the right arm on the left arm and the command for it. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to place his right arm on his left arm. Shall I read the footnotes?
Yes, please.
And that's in Muslim and Abu Dawood, and it is given in Al-Ghurabaa. And he used to say, we the company of prophets have been commanded to hasten the breaking of the fast, to delay the meal before the fast, and to place our right arm on the left arm during the prayer. And that's in Ibn Hibban and Diya with Sahih Isnad.
Right, so the title is to put the right on the left, meaning the right hand on the left hand. And the command, that means it is not something like an option, but it's actually something which we call it as obligatory. The Prophet ﷺ, as in the hadith, used to put his right hand on the left. We're going to see how in a minute, inshallah. Then he said the following, and this is an important hadith. And this hadith also is being narrated by Imam Malik. إِنَّا مَعْشَرَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ أُمِرْنَا بِتَعْجِيلِ فطرنا وتأخير سحورنا وأن نضع أيماننا على شمائلنا في الصلاة. We the prophets been commanded, number one, to hasten the breaking of the fast. Number two, to delay the sahur meal. Number three, to put the right on the left in the prayer. What do we gain from this? We know for a fact that whatever the prophets used to do and whatever the prophets used to be commanded with is from the sunan al-fitrah, the acts that corresponds to the nature of mankind. And if the person is left on his own and he was doing the fast, straight away he would break his fast as soon as the break takes place. He will not delay it because this is natural. And from his natural acts as well, that he would not make his sahur very early, so he would extend the time of fasting. He would make it to that limit just when he is about to start to fast. So naturally, talking that the ta'khir sahur, delaying the sahur, is from the sunnah. Not like these people will have, they call it precautionary time, and they'll add to their fast more hours. And also from the natural thing is to put the right on the left in the prayer. So this is as well from the natural act, putting the right on the left. So if the person, he's putting his right and his left on top of his waist, or on top of his head, or on top of his shoulders, all of that is not from the fitrah. And also it tells us that all the prophets used to pray. And their prayer, not just that, is almost close to our prayer. For verily, in the story of this companion called Salman al-Farisi, he used to pray his 5 daily prayers. And also from that prayer, we have going sujood and ruku'. So the prayers of the prophets, the prayers of the people before us and the nations before us, it was close to our prayer. There's no such thing that is a prayer of shaking the head, forward and backwards, as some of the people who are following certain religion they do. Or, for example, they put in their hand and they passing it from right shoulder to the left shoulder to the head. That as well is not being recorded, but actually the right on the left. And as soon as you see a person making prostration and ruku', putting the right on the left, you know that he is doing something serious. Then he says, go ahead. Where are you? Where are you? يلا تفضل انزل. يلا دكتور. I thought you were giving me a message. There's no message. يلا خير. يلا بسم الله. No problem. Second. One more.
Also,
yeah.
He sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed by a man who was praying and had placed his left arm on his right, so he pulled them apart and placed them right on the left.
He also passed by a man. The man is not being named, and we don't need his name because what we need is what the Prophet had done to him. And also this is better not to mention his name. Okay, because what he's doing is not really according to the Sunnah. He put his right, left on the right. He's either doesn't know, and he's a companion. Or maybe he forgot. Okay, he put the left on the right, so he passed by a man, and he was praying. And also we learn that the person, he may fix somebody if he's praying, that person, and he's not praying. So, like we have talked about the Qibla, if you remember, that companion passed by those people who were praying towards Jerusalem. As soon as he finished the prayer of the Prophet of Allah, it was to be towards the Qibla. He passed by them and he talked to them. That is, verily, the Prophet's being commanded to direct his prayer towards the Qibla. So no problem to fix the person, to talk to the person. So here, Prophet of Allah, he's not just talking, he's what? Fixing, physically. He said, فَانْتَزَعَهَا. And that's in Arabic like this. Like this. You pull somebody. So what he did, because his left is on the right, so what he did, he had taken his right, فَانْتَزَعَهَا, from his left, and he put it what? On top of his left. And that is okay to do. So if you've seen somebody doing something wrong, no problem. So if you've seen somebody, for example, who is praying and every time he makes a ruku', he's showing his backside. What you should do? Pull it. In order to what? To cover it. And as soon as you do that, he will realize. And he will start covering it later on. Whether you praying and he's praying, or whether you're not praying and he's praying, it doesn't matter. Fix things in the prayer. As for fixing things when you are outside the prayer to somebody who's in the prayer, we have seen the proof. And for fixing something when you are in the prayer to somebody who's in the prayer, you have a number of incidents. You remember the hadith of Mu'awiyah al-Hakam al-Sulami, who used to, at the moment, what he did, you remember that he talked in the salah, and the companions, they started what? Tapping on the shoulders. And even at the beginning, they looked at him. Okay? See, why thought like Umayyad? My mother lose me. Why are you looking at me like that? So he stopped in the prayer. What he did actually, he said, Yarhamukallah to somebody who sneezed. So they have told him off. They were in the prayer. The companions were not being told off by the Prophet of Allah. Why did you do that? So you are in a prayer, no problem to do that. And also, we have Ubay ibn Ka'b, while he was in the Jumu'ah prayer, and while you are in the khutbah, it's just like you're in a prayer. He gave a gesture to that Abu Dharr who asked him about something, and he said to him, with his eyes, like, be quiet. So no problem to do that. Prophet ﷺ, he would even return the salam with a gesture with his hand. So return the salam is not as important as enjoining good and forbidding evil. Returning the salam is not as important as enjoining good and forbidding evil. So he had put the right on the left. The Prophet of Allah, one day he had seen someone who had prayed a prayer after the iqamah was done. So what did he do to him? He pulled all of it, not the right and the left. He pulled all of them. And after he pulled him, he said to him, do you want to do the prayer of the Fajr 4 rak'ah, not 2? So you're adding your 2 plus the 2 that we're going to be doing. Subha arba'an. So here fixing with the tongue and with the physical. And the Prophet, when he pulled him, he did not make him to do salutation, because salutation is only at the end of the prayer. So you are allowed to fix. And you remember the hadith of Abi Bakrah radiallahu anhu. The Prophet of Allah, he had started his prayer, Allahu Akbar. Then he remembered he was in Janabah. So what he did, he gave a gesture. Ala masafikum. Then he stayed pot. He didn't say anything because he's in a prayer. He went to have the ghusl. After he finished the ghusl, he went back. And then he continued. فَصَلَّى بِهِمْ إِمَامًا. He led them in the prayer. طيب. Now, where to put the hand and how to put the hand right on the left. Go ahead.
To place the hand on the chest. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to place the right arm on the back of his left palm, wrist and forearm.
Now the translation, he added the right arm, but in the Arabic, he put his right. كان يضع اليمنى. The arm is an interpretation, an explanation. He's put the right on the back of the palm of the left, and also the wrist, and also the arm. Now, if I want to do that, you will notice that I will not be able to put it on my belly button or below that, the navel. If I'm going to be putting, first of all, I have to put the right to touch 3 things. So this is the right. Right is extending from here to my elbow. So anything from my part of this has to touch 3 things. What is that? The back of my palm of the left, the wrist, and the forearm. So if I did like this, have I done correct? No, because I haven't touched my what? Forearm. So in order to touch my forearm, I have to go forward a bit. In order my right, any part of my right will touch the back of my left, my wrist, and my arm. So I could do that, but I can't do that. And I go all the way up to the elbow. That is, but when you put it on the elbow, that's not in the hadith. So up to the way that this is my right, is on the back of my palm. Is that what's meant by back of my palm?
Yeah.
The back of my hand.
The left palm, yeah.
The back of my, and also the wrist, and also the forearms. So all of that. And when you do that, you can't go below your chest. Maybe if you go like this, you could go, but you can't go just more than below your breast. That's it. But you can't, unless you go with your shoulders to push it down to go your belly button. It's impossible. So the only way to go to with the belly button is to put the hand like that. So this is where you can have more slack into your arms, and then you'll go down. And that's not from the Sunnah of the Prophet of Allah. And the hadith regarding this hadith, which is Hadith ibn Abi Talib, the other Hadith ibn Abi Talib, is to put it below his navel. We have in it a narrator which is not authentic, and that is why it is unauthentic. Go ahead.
And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded his companions to do likewise.
So it is a compulsory act. Go ahead.
And sometimes he sallallahu alaihi wasallam would grasp his left arm with his right.
Right. So the grasping is another sunnah. So the sunnah is to alternate. Sometimes you grasp, and how do you grasp? You hold. And sometimes you put. So this is called wadr, this is called qabd. Wadr wa qabd. That's the one. So now, there's some from the Ahnaf madhab, they combine between the two, and this is not from the sunnah. How do they combine? By joining the right little finger with the thumb, like that, from the back, and they put 3 fingers on the forearms. So they are combining between the grasping plus the putting, and that's not from the sunnah. This reminds me as well of combining between, in istinja, the water and the stones. There's no such thing in combination, you add more sunnah to it. So the water is enough and the stone is enough also. But to add between them and you say that there is more reward, you need a proof for that. So the same thing here, we can't add between the two. That's not from the sunnah to add between them. So it's either that or that. And now, wherever you are, you could make the qabd. So it doesn't matter where you make the qabd, as long as you don't really reach the elbow. That's not right. Okay. Then
there's a footnote on this detail.
Go ahead.
Nasai and Daraqutni with
yes, go.
With a Sahih Isnad. In this hadith, there is evidence that grasping is from the Sunnah, and in the previous hadith, that so is placing. So both are Sunnah. As for the combination of holding and placing, which some of the later Hanafis hold to be good, then that is an innovation. Its form, as they stated, to place the right hand on the left, holding the wrist with the little finger and the thumb, and laying flat the remaining 3 fingers as described in Abdin footnotes on Durr al-Mukhtar. So do not be confused by what they say.
No.
He ﷺ used to place them on his chest.
No.
And the footnote is just a reference by Abu Dawud ibn Khuzaymah in his Sahih. Also, he ﷺ used to forbid putting one's hand on the waist during prayer, and he put his hand on his waist to demonstrate. And this is silb, which... Silb?
I don't think the translator understood that. Go on.
Which he used to forbid.
Right. Not silb, it's sal. Sal, crucifixion. Right. And this is, now he says, he forbade from al-ikhtisar. Al-ikhtisar fi salah. We have number of interpretation of the word ikhtisar. Ikhtisar, it could be that either you put the right and the left, both of them on your waist like that, which is the Malikis they do, the Rafidah they do as well. Just to let go of your hand, so your hand both is on your ikhtisar. This is ikhtisar, which is the waist of yours. That's the waist. So either you put them like that, or you put them as well, okay, like joining together, and they are on the waist, which is well below, and it's almost above the awra. So whether they're joined together, or you put them like this, that's what the Prophet of Allah used to forbade. And the reason behind this is that they are imitating 2 nations or religions we don't really follow. As Aisha, she said that this is what the Jews used to do in their salah. They put their hands on the waist. And as Abdullah ibn Umar, he said, this is the salb, which the Prophet of Allah used to forbid. Salb. Now, naturally, I wouldn't say that people would do like this. I don't understand that in their prayer. They wouldn't do like that in their prayer. Okay. That's like crucifixion. But they do like that, and they do like this. And both are not really from the salah acts. As for reasoning that with, this is takabbur, meaning, for example, this is a pride, or it is the act of the shaitan, that's not being traced in the athar, because we make the interpretation of the companion is to be the priority, and their interpretation is that not to imitate the Jews, and it's the salb, which the Prophet of Allah used to forbid. Now,
There's a note.
Go ahead.
To place them on the chest is what is proved in the Sunnah, and all that is contrary to it is either da'if or totally baseless. In fact, Imam Ishaq ibn
Rahawayh
is acted on this Sunnah.
We have, say that, Mirwazi, won't tell them Mirwazi.
As Marwazi said in Masail, Ishaq used to pray witr with us. He would raise
to pray witr for us. That means he used to lead us in the witr. Now,
he would raise his hands in qunut and make the qunut before bowing and place his hands on his breast, just under his breast, or just under his breast. Similar is the saying of Qadi Iyad al-Maliki in
the recommendation of the Salah,
Mustahabbat Salah, in his book in
and also Abdullah ibn Ahmad in his Masail, he said,
the right arm is to be placed on the back of the left, on the upper part of the chest. Close to this, Abdullah ibn Ahmad ibn Hanbal rahimahullah related to his Masail. I saw that when praying, my father placed his hands one on the other above the navel.
Okay. Right. Above the navel, not on top of the navel. That means above, that means upper. Oh. Right. Now going to the third title.
To look at the place of prostration and humility.
Humility. Is that humility or submissiveness or khushu'? Scrupulence is better. Isn't it? Scrupulence word? Khushu'. What is khushu'? Humility? I don't like the word. Because that's the word humbleness. But scrupulence is better. Wara', khushu', no? Or submissiveness maybe. Whatever. But submissive is it? Submissive concentration. Okay. It's a core of the prayer. But I don't know if humility is a good word for you. I don't know if you understand that. Because humiliation is, it tends to be the negative. That's what I believe. Wallahu a'lam. No, I'm not English. But
He sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to incline his head during prayer and fix his sight towards the ground.
Okay, so when he used to pray, he would ta'ta'a ra'sahu. So his head would be down. Ta'ta. This is ta'ta. And وَرَمَى بِبَصَرِهِ نَحْوَ الْأَرْضِ. And his sight will be onto the ground. That means not onto the heavens or the skies, not onto the horizon, it's onto the ground. Where in the ground? We're going to see in a minute. Go ahead.
While he sallallahu alayhi wasallam was in the Kaaba, his sight did not leave the place of his prostration until he came out of it.
Right, so here we find that when he entered the Kaaba, he had prayed and his sight did not leave the position or the spot where he used to make sujood until he had finished his prayer. So in this is a clear one, which is a narration very clear to say that the person's eye should be stuck to the ground, except in the places where mentioned otherwise. Like for example, when you make the tashahhud, Prophet of Allah used to put his eyes sight locked up onto his ishara, onto his movement of the finger. But apart from that, all the time onto the spot where he used to prostrate. While in your ruku', there is no hadith to tell us where the Prophet of Allah used to look. But we know that his head is in level with his back, so basically he will be looking down. So his head is not lifted up while he's making ruku' towards the Qibla, and it's not really so bent that he will look between his legs, okay, or between his feet, but it's actually, but we don't have a proof. Right, we don't have a proof where he was looking. So that is as well being left. So the Prophet of Allah, when he entered the Kaaba, his sight was locked up onto his prostration spot. Go ahead, Prophet ﷺ.
And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, it is not fitting that there should be anything in the house which disturbs the person praying.
So the person should not be having, when he's praying, things that would disturb him. People that pray next to the TV when it's open, I don't know, how do they do that? TV is on and maybe he's listening to the program while he was praying and maybe he's watching part of it. And that's not really, I don't know how they do that. You can't concentrate on the prayer like this. So if you've got something there, switch it up. You have to be basically in the most quietest sort of environment in order to perform a prayer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now,
It's a small note.
Small note, very important to say. Go on.
These two hadith show. Is it later?
These two hadith, which is numbered, this is the hadith which the Prophet used to put his head down, and the other one which is he entered the Kaaba. Go ahead.
These two hadith show that the sunnah is to fix one's sight on the place of prostration on the ground. So the action some worshippers of closing their eyes during prayer is misdirected piety.
Misdirected, and the Arabic word wara'un barid. I mean, it's unfitting, unfitting scrupulence. Unfitting. It's not the place to do scrupulence like that. It's exactly like this person who goes to make a haram in the haram, and he's supposed to have only the towel wrapping you, and this person is putting underwear. He said, I'm shy. That shyness is not in the right place. Do you understand that? Wara'un barid. So you have more shy than the Prophet of Allah, saying that he's putting on underwear. Okay, so he's shy. Because I'm not so talking about something which is not happening. It happened. The father of a person, whom this person came to me and said, my father doesn't want to take his underwear. And not only that, he said, how much is it to pay in order to put my underwear on? He wants to slaughter an animal or something. SubhanAllah. He thinks he's just going to pay the penalty and let's say I'm going to put my underwear. I don't want to. Take it off. So we say this is wara'un barid. This is not really scrupulous. This is playing around. I think you have more shy than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can you?
For the best guidance is the guidance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to forbid looking up at the sky.
Right. And he said?
And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam emphasized this prohibition so much that he said, people must refrain from looking up at the sky in prayer, or their sight will be returned to them, and in one narration, or their sight will be plucked away.
Right, so this person who is praying, and when he's praying, he is lifting up his eyes like that to the heavens. So the Prophet ﷺ, he prohibited that. And not only that, he said, let some people, because he passed by people, Prophet of Allah, he saw them in their prayer doing this. He said, those people doing this, who are lifting up their eyes towards the heavens in the salah, that they should fear that maybe that their eyes will be snatched, their sight will be snatched, it will not return back to them. And how it's being snatched, it's not being identified how, but it's going to be snatched. And that is the same thing how the Prophet of Allah, when he said, if the person lifts up his head before the Imam, Allah may turn his head into a donkey or pig, khinzir. Okay, so and that is how Allahu Ta'ala, the same thing with their eyes being snatched. And I have seen a number of people when they pray and they do like that. And their eyes, not just their eyes, their heads is on top. I have seen people when they as well make Sami Allah liman hamida, after they make the ruku', they go way behind, tilt their head, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. That's normal. You've seen them, Rabbana wa lakal hamd. I have even seen an old lady whom we think that maybe her back, we're not going to help her. She goes behind like an acrobatic. And I don't know how she does it. I can't do it, my back is going to break. She goes with her head like that. And she thinks this is more rewardable. So I've seen that, and I was, subhanAllah, astonished how the ignorance would, drive that person to do the unthinkable. It is the unthinkable. Do we go back like this? So this is as well not from the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now,
in another hadith, so when you pray, do not look here and there, for Allah sets His face for the face of His slave in his prayer, as long as he does not look away.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His throne. And when He sets His face towards His slave, it is suitable to His majesty. Allah is with you wherever you are. And He's with you with His knowledge. This with you is reality. And He descends in reality. But we don't know how, but it's suitable to His majesty. So when the person, if he is doing a job to a head of a company, and that company head or the manager is looking at him, you wouldn't dare do anything except what satisfies that manager, isn't it? He will do everything according to what he wants, because he's looking at you. So if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking at you when you're praying, as long as you don't really take away your sight, yaltafit. Yaltafit means to look from one side to another, whether it is with the head or with the eyes. But you're allowed to look with your eyes if you need to do so. Prophet said, "Kana yalhadu bi'ayni," as we're going to see. Yalhad. Sometimes, so you need, because he had just mentioned there that the person should not be closing his eyes in the prayer. And don't listen to those people or those folks who tells you that it is going to add to your scrupulence and your submissiveness, no problem to close your eyes. No. Once you close your eyes, number one, you have opposed the sunnah. Number two, that you might be having something passing between you sutra, you're not going to be able to do it, because you don't know, you close your eyes. Number three, if you praying in the open, you might have a snake or a scorpion biting you. So close your eyes. Number four is an imitation of the Jews as well in their prayer. Imitation of the Jews in their prayer when they close their eyes. They close their eyes like this and they pray. They close their eyes when they pray and they shake their head. So the closing the eye is not, so all of these four things are in closing the eyes. So if the person is awake, is opening his eyes, he's allowed to look if there is somebody, for example, is going to pass by. And the Prophet of Allah, when he used to pray, companions behind him, they used to know his recitation from the movement of his being. Whether they were outside the prayer, looking at him, or they are inside the prayer and watching and noticing. So the ones who are in the front, they're noticing the Prophet ﷺ, because I could see now in front of me, even though I'm looking at the bottom. I don't need to look like this to see. So I am seeing. If you're going to really now take some ahadith out of their context and to say that the Prophet of Allah, now he used to look this way, where we're going to put this ahadith which are clear? He used to put his eyesight on the ground. And he used to put his head down. If I put my head down, it's impossible to put my head down and at the same time I put my eyes looking at that. So that hadith is authentic. You can't get away with it. Okay, we're going to add to it the other hadith, which is that the Prophet of Allah, that he used to, for example, one day, he saw the shaitan as about to throw a ball at him. And he put his hand like that. And one day he had seen, the companion saw him, he's stretching his arm and taking like a bunch of grapes from paradise. And he said after the prayer one day, he said, I have seen the hellfire in this wall of mine. So if you're going to put these, the Prophet of Allah is looking that way. So either you're going to cancel these hadith and put those hadiths, or cancel the other ones and put this one. No, we will combine between them, and that's the best. But number one, we say that the person, even is looking at the ground, he could see around. And he could use his eyes if he needs to do so. So somebody did something, he could look at him. If, for example, a child is about to drop down, or a child is about to burn his finger into the flame, or something. Or I'm seeing, like, for example, an animal approaching, and I'm really watching that, for example, like a cockroach, or a rat, or whatever. So, no problem. For the Prophet, saw the sheep from that side coming, or from this side. So what he did, he got closer. He got closer. So the sheep. So where is the sheep coming? From the front or from the side? So it was coming from the side. It's coming from the side. So he used to look at the eyes. Oh, it's coming from the side. So I'm getting closer to block it. The same thing with a human being. I'm going to pass. I saw him. I could see him. It's coming from the side. So I'm going to make sure that he's not going to cross. So when I'm opening my eyes, I will be able to notice what is around me without the implementation that I have to put my eyes, as I've seen some people in prayer, they pray like that. Okay? And praying like this is not really according to what they pray. Because, you see, those ones who are putting their eyes like that, their argumentation is that always that the person should be in a state of a prayer. I never stop being astonished when they use the argumentation regarding after the ruku'. They say that the person should put the right on the left. You understand what I'm saying? One of their argumentation, we put after the ruku', we put the right on the left, and one of their justification for that Which is one that close to the person who prays? Which is closer to the ones who is in khushu'? The one who is putting his hands like that after ruku', or the one who putting the right on the left? That's the justification. I'm asking the same question. Which one is more to the khushu'? The one who's doing like this in the prayer, or the one who's doing like this? You tell me. Same justification. You understand what I'm saying? Write that down. So, I'm just saying, this is like, what is khushu'? Somebody's praying like this, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Rahman Rahim, and this one, Alhamdulillah Rabbil. According to justification, that one is what? Close to the khushu'. So the same thing is implemented. Now we're going to tackle the issue of putting the right on the left after the ruku' when we arrive to it, inshallah. That is well later on, when we talk about the ruku' and after what's coming after the ruku', inshallah. Now,
and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said about looking here and there, it is a snatching away which the devil steals from the slave during prayer.
Right, and اختلاس يختلسه الشيطان. So when the person looks to other than his prostration spot, it's like a stealth. The shaitan has stolen from your prayer. Because the shaitan is always there, trying to divert you, whether physically or spiritually, your concentration from the prayer. And that's his job. Now, and who is the shaitan of the khinzab? Khinzab is the one who specializes for the prayer. Now,
he sallallahu alayhi wasallam also said, Allah does not cease to turn to a slave in his prayer as long as he is not looking around. When he turns his face away, Allah turns away from him.
Allahu Akbar. Same thing, interpretation of the one before. Now,
he sallallahu alayhi wasallam forbade three things: pecking like a hen.
Pecking like a hen. You know the deek. The deek is the cock, the rooster, the cock. You call it? Cockerel, yes. Or the rooster. You call it the hen? Female, but it's not the female. A deek is the male, by the way. So it's wrong translation. Deek is not the judge. So it's not the hen. So it's the cockerel or the rooster. And how does it do it? He does it like this. That's the another one. Second one?
Squatting like a dog.
Okay, we need now to explain what is the squatting of a dog. Can anybody do me the squatting of a dog to see if you know it or not? Further. So putting the forearm, can you just show us please? This is not the squatting of the dog, this is the squatting of, this is the sitting of the sabah, which is the beast. Now, almost there, but open your feet. Open your leg, feel.
Bottom on the floor.
Bottom of the floor. Can you do that?
I can do that.
That's the squatting of the dog. To stick your buttocks into the ground with your legs open. You know how the dog sits down, you know? He sits down on his tail, like this. So that's the same thing. So you open your legs from behind, and you sit in your buttocks like a dog. Third one.
And looking around like a fox.
Can you look around like a fox, ya Bilal? No, not that. The fox doesn't look like this. The fox doesn't look like this. The fox doesn't look like this, and the chicken will be flying away.
Like this.
So this is like this. Sly as a fox, exactly. Sly is a sly. And these people, they look like this. People look like that. I have seen, and you have seen. People, they are, subhanAllah, in a way that you think they're not praying. And I remember what happened to me when I was finishing my prayer. This person, every time I remember him, Bismillah. And he was praying after the prayer, I can't remember, Maghrib, Isha, Dhuhr, I can't remember, but it's a sunnah. Praying to the post in the masjid. And I'm coming, and I was talking to somebody, and I was coming, and then he was smiling to me. He was smiling, and I remember that I never thought he's in a prayer. So I said, Salaamu Alaikum, Ya Abu, I know his name, Salaamu Alaikum, oh so and so. And I said, straight away. He's not telling me I'm in a prayer now. So all of that, what was that then? And I've seen another one, who is a person who is against the sunnah, Every time me and the brothers talk, that person, he pretends that he's praying. He's not praying. And he is, wallahi, in his ruku', he will do like this. In his ruku', looking at us, what we're doing. A'udhu billah. Somebody described that there's a venom coming out of his mouth. You know the venom of the snake? Venom coming out of his mouth because of that. This is really, a'udhu billah, like this. So that is as well slides of fox. So 3 things have been mentioned here. Prophet ﷺ also.
He also used to say, pray a farewell prayer as if you see him. But if you do not see him, surely he sees you.
And this is a mistake by the Imams which take it. The Prophet ﷺ said, Salli salatan muwadda. Pray a prayer when the person is about to die. What is the mistake that the Imams they do? Huh? Yes? They before the Salah, they say it. Now the Prophet ﷺ did not say it before the Salah. The Prophet ﷺ said it like he said it to teach the people the prayer. But to stand up before the people, and when you're leading the prayer, and they don't really even bother about what feet to feet and shoulder to shoulder, which is the one that you should be bothering about, then they say, Sallu salatan muwadda. وَاذْكُرُوا عَظَمَةَ اللَّهِ فِي قُلُوبِكُم. That's an addition which is not in the hadith. This is, I don't know, who's an Arab here? Yes. سمعت الكلام هذا؟ صلوا صلاة المودع, pray the farewell prayer. وَاذْكُرُوا عَظَمَةَ اللَّهِ فِي قُلُوبِكُم. Mention Allah's name in your heart. Magnify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart. The people say, Allah. This is all of it before the prayer. So as soon as they hear the word Allah, it's before Allah, it's before Takbir al-Haram. So all of it addition, bid'ah creates bid'ah. La ilaha illallah. And then the Imam says, Allahu Akbar. Sami'na wa ata'na. Allahu Akbar. Addition. Sami'na wa ata'na.
5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it takes about, not 5 to minutes, but it takes about 30 seconds. 1, 2, you can't do 3 before he starts his Takbir al-Haram. All of that, Sallu Salat al-Mudda, Wadhkuru 'Azamat Allahi fi qulubikum. Nothing from the prayer. It's all of an addition has been added. So the Prophet of Allah is teaching the people, when you pray, always pray that you are about to depart. What do you do when you pray is about, when you know your death is coming? Say that you have an execution now. Imagine, huh? And they said to you, you're going to be put now into the electrical chair. You're going to die. Or you're going to be having your head chopped off. Or you're going to be shot dead. Or you're going to be strangled, hanged. Okay, you're now. So what are you going to do? As a Muslim, you're going to be what? Doing a prayer. And that is what Khubayb radiallahu anhu has done. He said, I wanted to pray 2 rakah. So they let him to pray what? 2 rakah. And they said, do you want anything else? He said, had it been that you think that I'm scared, I would do what? Pray again, but you think I'm scared. So go ahead with it. Okay? And this is as well, a number of companions had done it with those people who are about to kill them. Khubayb, and we have as well, what's it, the person? Tariq ibn Abdullah, not Tariq. Subhanallah. He came from Zayd ibn Dathina. It's been said as well, praying very good, 2 rak'ah. And one person was from the companions whom the kuffar leader who had tried to make him to say the kufr word, and he did not. And he exposed to him, and he said to him, I'll give you my money, I'll give you my kingship, and he'll give you my kingdom. And he said no. And then he brought somebody in front of him, and they had boiled him until his bones was really showing. And then they said, okay, kill him. So when they're about to take him, to go and kill him, he started crying. So the king, he said, now you're scared. He said, no, I'm not really crying because I'm scared. I'm crying because I've got one soul to give for the sake of Allah. I would have got what? Many souls to sacrifice for the sake of Allah. That's when the king, he said, he'd given up now. He said, okay, kiss my head, I'll release you. No way. Okay, kiss my head, I'll release you, and I'll release 80 of the captive Muslim. Yes, I'll do that. So he kissed his head, and he released 80 80 of the Muslim captives, and that's when Umar Khattabi said, قبلت رأس العيج. You have kissed the head of a disbeliever. But alhamdulillah, Allah had released 80 captives because of that kiss. نعم كرهت أن أشمتك في الإسلام. This is the title of that hadith story. Now, go ahead.
And any person who, when an obligatory prayer is due, excels in its ablution, humility and bowing, will have it as a remission for his previous minor sins as long as he does not commit a major sin. And this opportunity...
Is that a footnote?
No.
Okay, the last thing you read, please pray as they pray.
Farewell
Prayer.
sin, surely he sees you.
Yes.
And any person who, when an obligatory prayer is due, excels in its ablution, humility and bowing, will have it as a remission. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, go on, yes. Except would be, okay. Right, so you pray as a farewell prayer just like you're seeing Allah. If you don't see Allah, He's seeing you. And this is the ultimate of worship, which is al-ihsan. And any person who's got the prayer is about to start, then let him make his wudu properly. And let him make his khushu' and ruku' properly. And if he does so, then it will be what? Yes, a sin expiation.
A remission of his previous minor sins, as long as he does not commit a major sin. And this opportunity is for all times.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
Once he sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed in a khamisa, which is a woolen garment having marks, and during the prayer he looked at its marks. So when he finished, he said, "Take this khamisa of mine to Abu Jahm and bring me the ambijaniya, which is a coarse garment without marks, for it has diverted my attention from the prayer." In one narration, "For I have looked at its marks during the prayer, and it almost put me to trial."
We understand from this, number one, that this ambijaniya, not being bought by the Prophet of Allah, is being given into as a gift. Number two, it is not haram to put such ambijaniya, to put it on. Number three, the Prophet of Allah, he did not want to pray in it because it disturbs him in his prayer. And number four, because he doesn't want to upset Abu Jahm, he said to go and take it back to him, and that shows it's halal, because if it's not halal, no one will send it back to him. And to bring another one from him as a gift. So I don't want this, because I will pray in it. So you could use it in any time, but not the prayer, because it will take your eyes from the prayer, the concentration. So we also learn that the Prophet of Allah, he is allowing us to put things which got covers in it, no problem, and patterns. On number 6 or 7, we learn from this that the person does not close his eyes in the prayer, because the Prophet of Allah, he could have just simply closed his eyes while he's got this ambijaniya to concentrate. But yet he did not close his eyes, and he said, no, this one had disturbed me in the prayer. So that means he does not as well. So all of that we have learned it from this hadith. Now,
also, Aisha radiallahu anha had a cloth with pictures spread towards the sahwa, towards which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam,
what is sahwa?
Says sahwa is a small room embedded in the ground slightly, like a small chamber or cupboard.
I've seen the sahwas. You see, it looks like a wall. This is the sahwa. See like this? That's a sahwa. What you've got now, that's a sahwa. It's like a cupboard in the wall, being made by the wall itself. All right. Now this is being built. And before that, in the cave itself, it will be like this, like a hole. They use it for hanging, hiding, putting things there. It's exactly like this. This is a sahwa. Right, so Aisha radiallahu anha, she had put a cloth, like this cloth, on top of that sahwa to cover it. They mean there's inside, for example, pillows that she puts, clothes that she puts, you know, inside that sahwa. So she used to cover it, and that cover was having tasawir. Tasawir here is patterns. Are these patterns got souls in it? No. Because if it's got souls in it, the Prophet of Allah would have taken it what? Completely, either cut, because if it's got souls in it, like the picture of a head. So those patterns, they're patterns only which is soul free. There's no life into it. So the Prophet of Allah used to pray to it. Because if it's got soul, what happens? The angel will not come inside. Jibreel will not come inside. Alayhi salam. So he used to pray to it, so that means it's allowed to have this cover on top of that sahwa. But what happened? Because he prayed towards it. So what isn't the Prophet of Allah to pray somewhere else? Because the room is what? Small. It's only got the bed. And it's got that sahwa, maybe it's the hole of the wall. So wherever he goes, that thing is what? In the qibla of his. Shows you how big, how small it is. So if the Prophet of Allah prayed somewhere else, you will not see it. But it looks like the room of Aisha radiallahu anha. It's only that bed, and it's only that sahwa. You remember when he used to prostrate, and she is sleeping, what you do is nudge her, to move her feet. So the Prophet of Allah, when he used to come to a room where there's two people, one was awake and one is asleep. You remember the hadith in Al-Adab al-Mufrad where he says that the Prophet of Allah will give a salam that will only audible to the awake, and it will not wake up the what? The sleep. That means it's caring. So would it be, would it be, for example, fitting for the Prophet of Allah, which is not, that is, he does not disturb the person with his what? Speech, make it loud. Yet he would give a nudge to Aisha to move her feet. It must be what? A small room, we can't go anywhere. So it looks like the room is really small. Just got this sahwa, it's got the... And remember, his own her place is inside the room. The room is, so it's like her kitchen, her room, her sleeping room, her everything. Small room. It had 3 graves in it. 3 graves, and there is a space maybe for what? Because Aisha, she said, I'm going to keep that place for me. Afterwards, she said, don't bury me there, because I don't deserve it. Remember? So, that room was locked after this. And the history behind the Prophet's room is very fascinating as well. What happened to it? You know, that the rooms has been sealed. And then after that there's a wall. And there's a triangle wall being built on it. Triangle. You know triangle why? The head of the triangle. So this is like saying this is the Qibla. Okay, that's the Qibla. The graves of the Prophet of Allah is this way. Behind him Abu Bakr. And behind him what? Umar. Like this. 1, 2, 3. In the room. Okay? So these are the 3 facing the Qibla. So the room was sealed. Closed. Nobody can go inside. And after that, there was a fence which was built around the room. And after that, there was another one which is triangle. The triangle is from the back of the graves. You know why? So the people will not face the graves. Do you understand that? This is the grave. So from the back of the graves, triangle, like this. So no one can face the graves. Because if you're going to go this way, you are not towards the Qibla, isn't it? And if you go this way, the graves are not facing you, so you are the head of the triangle like that. And on top of that is another fence as well. Fence after a triangle after a fence as well. Just to make sure that what? No one would pray in the grave or towards the grave. And you could see the extension of the haram was everywhere except where that grave. You know, the grave ends with it. See, that side is always empty. There's no building. There's no building on that side. Because they don't want to make it looks like that the grave is inside the masjid. So it ends with that room. You know what I'm talking about, you know? You know, I'm talking about the Prophet's grave. Yeah, from the side of the Baqiyah, you could see the haram is being expanded. When it comes to the grave of the Prophet of Allah, they did not expand it from this way. They did not put that room to be in the middle. So it's one side is from outside. Okay? That's all of it just to make sure that nobody would pray towards it. And also, there is reinforcement of proper, things that nobody can penetrate. Because some people wanted to steal the body of the Prophet of Allah. So that you can't really reach it, basically. You can't reach it. And all these pictures you have seen on the internet, where there's a clean turban on top of a grave, which is like a tomb and all of that, the grave of the Prophet, and all of it rubbish. This is not from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A'udhu billah. There is no raising whatsoever of the graves. Now, go ahead.
Reading that.
Yeah. Finish reading it. You finished it? You haven't finished
No. So Aisha radiallahu anha had a cloth with pictures spread towards Sahwa, towards which the Prophet ﷺ prayed and then said, "Take it away from me, for this picture did not cease to thwart me in my prayer." He ﷺ would also say, "Prayer is not valid when the food has been served, nor when it is time to relieve oneself of two filths."
You know something, think with me, contemplate this. Now the Prophet of Allah, he was praying towards this sahwa, which is like an opening in the wall. It's been covered with that pattern. The Prophet of Allah, he said, "Take that away because it was disturbing me." And we praying, some people even pray in the church. And the church, you can't find any wall without drawings. You find people praying in places which is so decorated. Have you noticed that we don't really bother about these things because we are in everything except for the prayer? And the Prophet of Allah is so concentrating in the prayer, and that pattern, which I'm sure it will not disturb you guys, you will pray to it normally because you're already disturbed with lots of things other than that. Your mind is not there in the prayer. Do you understand me? Because the person who's mind in the prayer, anything will disturb him. But now, subhanallah. So the prayer mat became like normal. They put the prayer mat, the most decorative prayer mat, the most expensive one. And they'll put it there to disturb with what? It's already disturbed. Okay? You know, we used to say, for example, that the person would, pray on the carpet instead of concentrating, he would be counting how many windows and how many doors in the Kaaba, which is a problem for them. That is the case if it's a new carpet. But if it's the old pattern carpet, nobody would notice, even though nobody would even look at it, because his mind is off all of that. His mind is not in the prayer. So you not even notice that carpet, unless it's a peculiar carpet. Like for example, 3-dimension one or something. He will start looking at it. He'll be starting to concentrate. Not in the prayer, in the mat. Do you understand me? But now he doesn't. And that is why I remember one of the shuyukh. He used to say that the scarf, which is the red scarf, it's got the, like the one, the Saudi Arabian scarf. Huh? Checkered one, yes. Oh, it's got, yes. Ratra. If it's red, not the white, he used to say it is not allowed. I used to see him. Why do you play in this one? And he always uses the hadith of the Abi Jahl, al-Ambijaniya. Do you understand me? Because it's got these things that would disturb you from the prayer. So one of the shuyukh is another scholar. He replied to him, it became one of the patterns that if you change it, it will disturb the person. Do you understand the other way around now? It became from the norms of the people that if you change that pattern, or you change the whole scarf, then it will become. It reminds me of as well the hats that use some of the Africans in Zimbabwe or Ghana or all these countries. Some of them have patterns, but one in Pakistan they got mirrors. So when you pray behind somebody, you could see the reflection. You could really comb your hair. That is really, I would say, over the top. Yeah? And it's got an opening, for sujood. Yeah. It looks funny, by the way. I'm sorry to see the Pakistan brothers, but it's very funny. But it's got lots of mirrors, it's a reflection. And there's lights there, he'll be shining on you, the lights, every time he moves his head. He says, La salata bi hadrat al-ta'am. The person should not pray when he is having the food next to him. So, Abdullah ibn Umar, he used to eat, and the Imam is reciting his first rak'ah. It's not just Allahu Akbar, he's reciting the Fatiha. I'm talking about Salat al-Maghrib. Maybe he was fasting, because the food is there. So he will not let go of the food until he has what? His satisfaction. So when he goes to the prayer, he's not concentrating on cheese or whatever, he's concentrating on the prayer. Same thing, وَهُوَ يُدَافِعُهُ الْأَخْبَثَانِ. That is being pushed by either the urine or the excrement. Is that what is being explained? Yes? Urine or excrement. Now, Is his prayer valid? Because it says La salata. There's no prayer. Invalidation. So the scholars, they said the invalidation depends upon how persisting the need of those. You could imagine that in the pushing of the excrement to the urine. So if the person, he is about to urinate, so much that he's in the prayer now, he's moving himself, just to make himself hold it, his prayer is jeopardized. Because he's not really in the prayer, he's in the moment in the mood of concentration, how to hold his urine. So that will be jeopardized. But it is, pushing, but it's not really hard, it's disliked. It's disliked. And if it's you need to do it, but you don't have to, it will be better for you to go relieve yourself. You have to be relaxed, totally, when you're in the prayer. Same thing with the food. But I don't really imagine somebody, unless he's really so hungry, he's about to fall, he's got food there ready for him, then we would say, no, eat before you're going to collapse. Otherwise your prayer will be jeopardized. And the person here, when I say the food is ready. Not the food to be cooked. The food is ready. بحضرة الطعام. Cooked them going to be a long time. Then the prayer is finished before the. But we finished here, alhamdulillah, at Ifl Istiftah for next week. We have questions. Start with the uncle, please. If you have questions, please, uncle. I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but inshallah for next week, it's going to be after Isha, it's going to be 8:15, isn't it, Isha? Yeah. Yes, alhamdulillah. Go ahead. After the Jum'ah? During the khutbah. Okay, you are in the khutbah while the Imam, uncle, is delivering his khutbah, somebody comes to shake your hand? Your hand, in particular. But I haven't seen this to anybody. Why does he do that, uncle? Why does he do that? He keeps it crazy? Oh, greeting, crazy. Okay. I have never seen any person who would shake the hands of somebody while he is listening to the khutbah. I have seen people talking to other people, but shaking the hands, I haven't seen it. But that is peculiar. So if he shook your hand, uncle, you could, and you can't really get away with it, you shake his hand, because the shaking of the hand is not talking, and you could give him a gesture with your hand by raising your palm towards him, or making your finger towards your mouth. Can you do that, uncle, like this? Yes. That's it, to tell him to be quiet. So shake the hands, because you're not saying salam, and that will learn and teach him later on. And so if you know that person, later on, advise him. You can't shake hands, you can't say salam. I'm in the prayer. When he shook your hands, he actually disturbed you from listening to the khutbah. Definitely. He had disturbed you. Now.
I have a question regarding the last week.
Yes.
Some people raise their hands like this. What's that proof to say that?
Some people, they say they raise the hands, that is, which is towards himself, and it's like he's making dua. What is the proof to say that the raising of the hands with the palm towards the qibla? We have number of ahadith which are da'if, but they give us the hint. The Prophet of Allah used to put his batin al-kaf towards the qibla. They could raise up to be authentic. You understand me? Altogether. I haven't mentioned those ahadith because they are not authentic the last time. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the hadith that we have mentioned, we haven't got any, have you? You haven't got any of them to say that he was pointing with his palm towards the qibla. Funnily enough to say that the people always do the opposite. For example, in the prayer, like you said, when they say Sami Allah liman hamida, they put what? Like the dua. But when they go to the haram and they do their sa'i, when they go to the Safa al-Marwa, they do the opposite. They do like this, like the prayer. You understand me? So they do that the opposite. It's funny enough. So in the sa'i, they do like that. I've seen them. Have you seen them? They do like the palm towards the Kaaba. And when it comes to the prayer, they do like the palm towards the face, which is not the right case. So in the dua, the normal dua, you do like this, but in the ruku' and the takbirat al-ihram is you do like this. We have a hadith from takbirat al-ihram, from other takbirat, that the Prophet ﷺ used to takbirat by raising the hands like this. And always when you raise up the hands is The normal way is to do like that. When it goes to the way like this, then it will be mentioned in the hadith. And his palms is towards his face. So the normal way is that way. Raise the hands that way. You don't do like that. That's the reason of the hands. You say, raise up your hand. You do like this. Do like that. Now. Follow.
Could you clarify the time for Maghrib? Exactly how late into the time of Maghrib you can actually pray? For instance, Isha, you can pray at midnight. So what is the time?
Maghrib prayer extends from the moment that the sun sets. How sun sets is normal. Sun, the disk disappears, the day disappears from that side, and the night will be coming from the other side, which is the opposite side. That is the east. So sun sets in the west. So the night comes into the east, and the daylight will disappear from the west, and the sun disk will disappear. That's the sunset. Up to when? That is up to the end of time of Maghrib, which is the beginning of Isha. When does the beginning of Isha? It's the disappearance of the red twilight. Twilight is like a spectrum of the sun, colors. And the first one that disappears is the red, and then the rest of the colors, until the whole darkness comes in. But some places, like here in the summer, we don't have we have the sort of the phenomenon where the twilight is still, the white one is still there. How hanging on? Okay, that we're not really concerned with it. We're concerned with the reddish, and that is, we say, our scholars used to say to us, be careful from the Maghrib. Don't delay it until the beginning of Isha, because usually the Isha is not being set by the eyesight, it's being set by calendars. And the calendars, they always give you the Isha after the Isha. So they always say to us, don't delay the Maghrib to what you think is the Isha time according to the calendar. So you pray at the beginning. Best of the prayers all the time at the beginning of its time. The best of the prayers is always beginning and of its time, unless it's been specified. Like for example, the Prophet of Allah during the Dhuhr, he used to delay it until it gets cooler. That's in the Arabian Peninsula. That's when there is hot. There's no heat here in this country. In the Arabian Peninsula as well, there's no air conditioning at the time of the Prophet of Allah to cool the masjid. But now, mashallah, he got in a car which is air conditioned, and he goes into the masjid air conditioned. So there's no need to delay that prayer in the Dhuhr. The Asr is at the beginning of its time. That's the best of the time. The Maghrib was the same thing. But the Isha, Prophet of Allah, he said, it's the best to pray it when? At the end of the beginning of the night. That means half of the night, you reach up to half. So in the first third. But you don't go exceed half, because that's at the end of it. So half of the night now at the moment. Maghrib is at the moment at exactly, come on, tell me. SubhanAllah. 6:53. That's the time. Right, so say 7, what the calculation wise. Fajr time is? No more than that. Come on. Is it? Okay, say 5:30. Calculation wise. 5:30. Alright? 5. Yeah, 5. I think 5:30 according to what you said. 5:30. Let's say from 7 to 5:30. How many hours we have? 10 and a half hours. Half of that, 5 and 15 minutes. Add that to the 7, 12, 15, your midnight. That's your midnight. So up to 12. Don't delay it more than 12. So up to 12, that's the Isha. But because we pray in Jama'ah, and the people will not be able to wait, and they cannot really push the Isha. Now at the moment, as long as it goes earlier, we make it earlier. So we go with the Jama'ah, is the area is better with the Jama'ah always. So that's the time of the Maghrib. Now, تفضل يا أخي. Is the رفع اليدين after you finish the sujood, the second sajda and you get up? Now, first of all, we haven't reached that, but I'm going to ask the question, we haven't reached that yet. To raise up the hands after the second sajda. Now there is two raising up of the hand, either after the first to the second, or from the third to the fourth, which is the same, or from the second to the third. Do you understand that? Either from the first to the second, or from the third to the fourth, which is the one that you know there's no tashahhud, or from the second after tashahhud to get up. Is that what you're asking? Yes? In all of the cases we have the Prophet of Allah ahyan, sometimes he used to raise up his hands. And raising up the hands after the sitting of we call it the rest sitting. Sit down, and then takbirah and get up. The one which is more emphasized is the one after the second rak'ah. Okay, to the third rak'ah. Prophet of Allah, he used to raise up his hands even between the two sajda. Which we don't do we? But that's very rarely as well, very sometimes. Now,
You mentioned putting the hands on the chest. What area is the chest and something to
when we put in the chest, that's the chest. This is not the chest. This is the heart. Okay, the heart is part of it, but it's not the. This is, I don't know what it is here. Okay. Huh? Lungs? Yeah, we both have lungs anyway. Liver? Okay, there's a cake in the liver, yeah. Right. Now, but if we're going to go on what the people they do, I've seen them doing a lot regarding this issue. The one they start with the ones that we do wrongly, which is they exaggerate of the chest, they put it like this. That's the one with, I've seen the brothers from the followers of the Salafi madhab, they do like this. That's not right, because you're stroking yourself here. It's not the chest, it's the neck, or the upper part. So it has to be chest, natural. And the ones we have seen as well, and you have seen, the ones on the heart. That's the brothers from certain Arab countries, they do that. Okay, they do that in the heart. I'm not going to say the Arab country because I don't want people now, my country don't do that. It's not Algeria, by the way. Nor it's Libya. Close. So they put their hand in the heart like that. I have seen people from the ones who are the non-Arabs, they put their hands on the navel, and I've seen even one of them put it on the awrah. He's ignorant. We have seen as well the brothers from Madhab al-Maliki, which is most of it in the Moroccan side, which is now getting less and less and less, not like before, less and less. They put their hands on their waist, like that. They just make it their sad. They let go of their hands. Okay? And lots of Africans as well. Huh? They're sad. It's bad, then it will be properly prohibited. So it's you're saying it. Okay, so if we're going to call it the isbal, part of it, then it's properly prohibited. But they believe that Imam Malik used to say that, to do that. Well, if it is the case, Imam Malik was whipped. That's why he couldn't hold his hand. And that's why he put in this. That's one of the narrations of this. But anyway, Imam Malik in his Muwatta, he put the right on the left of the hadith of Rasulullah. أمرنا معشر الأنبياء أن نضع أيماننا على شمائلنا. We the Prophet being commanded to put the right on the left. That's not the Imam Malik. How can he go wrong or he oppose what he had just mentioned in his Muwatta, in his book? And the other ones which I as well, which one I have mentioned? Yes, I've seen, which is yesterday, somebody praying like me like that. While he was praying next to me, I actually prayed him like this, and then in my second rak'ah, because I noticed that, so I pushed his hand. And he put it like this. And he kept doing it like this, and he learned it. But he was doing like this. It's normal. People do like this, isn't it? So that's not right. So I pushed his hand while he was next to me from this side, pushed it, he did like this, so he knew to do like this. So he learned this way. So what more that we haven't really seen? I don't think anybody would do more. I haven't seen this. I haven't seen that at all. No. Have you? Anybody saw something that we could really convey to people? Okay, alhamdulillah. Have you ever seen this one which has been described in the book? Yes.
Yes.
Like that. Yes. طيب خير إن شاء الله. تفضل.
Regarding those different hand positions, how can someone vary in one rak'ah, each rak'ah change?
The variation is being mentioned. It is not being specified from one prayer to another. So if, for example, you are making ruku', you could say the dua Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim, Subhana Rabbil Azim. Second ruku', you could say Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamd. For example. Or Subhana Rabbil Azim, Allahumma laka raka'tu bika ant wa laka aslamtu tara. The other dua, I'm saying. So the addition had to be changed in one ruku', but not in the same ruku'. So the same thing here, when you are in the upright position, the first rak'ah. I can't keep doing like this when I'm reading the Fatiha, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alamin, Rahman Rahim. I can't do like this. But I do this, first rak'ah. Second rak'ah I could do that, no problem. So, and that's the sunnah to alternate between these, because there is no specific position the Prophet had held all the time, as in the hadith shows us. No. Fadal, Alfred.
Talked about how correcting somebody who hasn't got the right arm position. How do we go correcting somebody who's not in line from feet to feet, shoulder to shoulder?
Somebody who's not in feet to feet, how can I correct him? Very easy. I could just point to his hip with my hand, like this. If he's next to me, I push him. If he's next to me. If he's in front of me, I could just pull him. Okay? But I need to make sure that I'm a person that I'm not going to create fitna. Okay? So if you are known to be a person who is religious and known with knowledge, they will listen to you. So when this person, I pushed him, I know that he will adhere to what I'm saying. But if he was an old man, older than me, I'm going to push him, he might push me back. And that's obvious. So that person I knew, definitely, when they do straight away, they do this, khalas, alhamdulillah. I know. He's a student, basically. But if I'm not going to create problems, and the older you get, the more appropriate would be your advice, and the more acceptable you are to the community. But if you're young, say you're about like Bilal, started correcting the prayer like an uncle. Somebody like an uncle who said, you have just born yesterday. You tried to correct that prayer. That's the common answer. That's the natural. You have been born yesterday. When Arabs say, yesterday you came out from the cracked egg. You know, the egg will bring the chick. You came out from the egg. You coming now to go and fix up the prayer of the rooster? I can't. Yeah, smoke cigarettes. Allah understand. So we have to be careful of this. Allah Ta'ala alam. Please, last question I'm going to give to anybody. Last question. Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Last question.
Sometimes when there's a crowd and there's a lot of people, sometimes they end up...
Oh dear, right. This one, sometimes when you are really, squeezed in, and you find only that in the sunnah of the masajid. Only the masajid of the sunnah, because they are competing for the first one. If you go to the masajid, you have an acre on your right, an acre on your left, you can bring the brother, come here and squeeze in. But in the masajid of the sunnah, like here, they're trying to, which is a very good sign, they're trying to be in the first row. Now, in the first row, yes, to squeeze in the shoulder to the shoulder, but not to squeeze in that the shoulder will flick like that. And some people have seen them praying like this. What's that? But the sisters or not can see me, meaning that they could see me? No, can't. So that is to put one shoulder towards almost diagonally, because it's been squeezed so much. I've seen them doing like this. Your chest is not towards the qibla. You have to do like this. And the Imam, if you've seen this, maybe he would really put more space by moving the people a bit to the side. So brothers, yes, squeeze in, but not squeeze into the squash in, Don't squash people. Jazakallah khair, subhanakallah wa bihamdik.